What I really wanted to talk about here, what we learned, as Melissa and Brad talked about when they did their part, one of the things we learned is that we need to slow down and that we need to emphasize the process over the product, as I talked about earlier. And so this course will now be a whole year long. Now, we're only showing you the first semester. And this course, instead of simply being focused on the EE, will be focused on the core itself. And so what we will be trying to do for students, Melissa, if you go back to the first one. Yeah. What we'll be trying to do for the students is show them that there is a connection between TOK, EE, and CAS. That they aren't just little individual entities floating out in the middle of nowhere. But this will be largely geared toward the EE itself. So we have created a 9-unit course for the first semester. And these 9 units are focused on very slowly getting the students to kind of adapt to the idea of the EE, the idea of writing a 4,000-word essay that doesn't get the grade that they expect and hope, and that they don't get a lot of personal feedback from IB very quickly, and so on. This is kind of intimidating for them. So what we are trying to do is teach them what the EE is first, why they need to do it. We're asking them questions to kind of reflect on what they're doing. After giving them assigned reading, every time he does that, I think it's me. But we're giving them assigned readings on the EE itself, not exciting stuff, but just to get to know it. We'll talk about it in our 24-minute periods, and then we'll have discussions online. Then the big focus, you see that we're going to spend 2 weeks on it, will be the hexagon. What is the hexagon? Why does it matter? Why is the core set apart from the rest of the hexagon? What is the IB learner profile? How does that relate to what they want to do with their EE? How does it relate to what they want to do as learners in IB overall? So you see that we're asking a question considering the IB learner profile. We're having them do a self-reflection on where they think they fit in this profile and which aspects of the profile they do really well and which aspects they think they might need to improve on. And that's totally a self-reflection. It's not us telling them. And then we talk more about the core. And then we get really into the EE itself. And we start by having them find their interests, just like I've heard a lot of you mention, and try to apply their interests to the EE. But since we made the mistake last time, and we had the video game example, we made the mistake of saying, whatever you want to do, you can do. Well, obviously that's not true. And so what we are doing, do we have 4 fully shown? Yeah. What we're trying to do is show them how what they want to do fits into the 6 EE groups or the 5 TOK areas of knowledge that would apply to the 6 EE groups. Because ethics only kind of loosely applies to the rest of the EE. So we are going through and we are looking, whoops. So we are going through and we are looking exactly at how the EE groups are defined, their overviews. This is stuff that in the past in our classes the students have never really looked at because we would say go look at it, but of course they're not going to do that. I don't want to do that. It was boring for me to go through and do this, but this way we can put it in front of them and hold them accountable for doing it and let them have, again, self-reflections on it, showing how they think their potential topic fits into the groups. And if it doesn't fit into the groups, then they have to change it. And finally, we have sort of the structure to make this happen. Then we go into the research question. In the first entity of the course, we had this in week 3. Now, it's not until week 7 of the course that they identify what they think their research question will be. So we have 6 weeks of background into What are EE groups? What is the EE? What is TOK? What is the hexagon? How does CAS fit into all of this? Why does it matter? Why does it matter if you're only going to get a couple extra points if you do a really good job? So we're going through this whole process of making the students try to get it. So then we get the research question, and that's largely what the EE11 course showed you, were kids trying to float their research question idea and then us responding to it. But the first part of that will be the students responding to each other and saying, oh, this is great, maybe you can tweak it this way to fit it into this group or whatever. Then we go into the research process, and we largely go into a classic Language A1 English course about, how do we write? What do we do to make that happen? No, go back, Melissa, you were right, 7.
Oh, 7.
7, yes. Now, here is where I think TOK really starts to fit into this. We've been introducing it all along, trying to help them understand how it fits, how the areas of knowledge will help them, but we haven't really gotten into hardcore TOK yet until now. As they start considering their sources, and they consider their own perspective as a writer, and they consider the perspectives of their sources and how that might affect what they're doing, then we are bringing in TOK and trying to help them understand bias and perception and how that fits into writing. So I think it's not as scary to them to start addressing TOK when they don't really feel like they're thrown into, does the desk exist? They're thrown into, okay, how does this relate to assessing the people that I want to use as a source? And so what we're having them do is actually take a look at a piece of fiction and then a non-threatening piece of nonfiction and start asking, and our students are at a school that it can loosely be defined as a mega school, and so they have lots of really strong opinions about what a mega school looks like. It is a mega school. I've seen some big schools. Anyway, we have about 2,800, so it's not a small school. Anyway, during this process, as we're teaching them about bias and how to construct sources and use them, they are also preparing working bibliography sources each week and going through that process. Again, we'll have forums. This course is not finished. We'll have some self-reflection forums there. And then the last 2 units, 8 and 9 here, look more like kind of a classic writing course, showing the difference between an extended essay and a research paper, because we all know they're different things, but the students don't know that. And we know that the EEs that are research papers get bad scores. There must be lots of analysis. And so we're trying to go through that, teach them everything they need to know. It's a lot of work. But we're hoping that slowing it down, pacing it over this 9 weeks, will help us really emphasize what's important. So if you would go to this slide. So what we learned from the pilot and a lot of what we just went through in that course, slow down. Process is more important. The product will come if the process is emphasized correctly. And we think we have slowed that down enough, but of course we'll welcome your suggestions at the end. Another thing that we have not been doing a good job of, and that we're really focused on this time, is showing clear connections between all 3 of the elements of the core. And then, of course, organization, timelines, checkpoints are musts. If they are not embedded, maybe your students do a great job, but my students don't. And so we've had to really work with that. Okay?